This ex-Wall Street stockbroker reveals what it was like to self-surrender to a federal prison and what his first day in prison was actually like.
So, with no preparations, my mom and brother drive me to the low security prison, which is where you surrender, and it took about 3 hours to get processed over to the camp. And of course, everyone knows you're the new prisoner because you have the uniform on, and like the Jeff Spicoli shoes from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. They were orange shoes. And I'll never forget that first day. I thought it was so strange. They just throw you out into the camp. They're like, go there and get your laundry and a pillow and then go to the dorm. I'm like, what dorm? The guy's like, that dorm. I'm like, that dorm? And he's looking at me like, my God, we got one here. That dorm. I'm like, okay. So as I'm walking to get my laundry, I was stunned at how many guys were like smiling and happy. I'm like, why is this guy smiling? I've never seen someone happy in my life. Why are all these guys smiling in prison? They're in prison. What's wrong with them? But you can have great days in prison. So I get the laundry. I walk up to D dorm and I walk in, and the first thing that hits me is the smell, because you have so many guys. It's just 150 guys in the dorm with cubicles, and the microwaves and the cooking is a stench I'll never forget. Not always bad, but you have so many things competing. And there's a guard at the front of the dorm, and I tell him, cubicle 16 upper. I always had an upper bunk because I was young. And he's just like, just go there. And then I see all these men flurry out the door. And I'm like, where are these people going? And they went down to the chow hall. And I'm like, oh, my first time in the chow hall, and I'm wearing the uniform. I'm walking in line, and everyone begins to ask you questions, right? It's inevitable. Some care, some don't. How long are you here for? I said, my sentence is 18 months. And then I walk into the chow hall, and there were some racists sitting together. And I'm like, well, this is a camp. I thought it wasn't supposed to be that way. And one guy said pretty directly to me, like, you sit on that side. I'm like, okay, I can sit on that side. And then at the end of our first meal, guys started knocking. I'm like, why are people knocking here? And apparently it's a sign of respect to knock when you're done, or I'm done eating. I never once knock in prison. I said, I'm not going to do it. And then I left. I went up to the dorm, and I just sat there for several hours. And then a dude came up to me and said, hey, man, let's walk around the track together and talk. And I regretted doing that. That was a mistake my first day, because it turned out to be someone who complained a lot, but also spent a lot of time speaking to staff. And I was not a proponent of speaking to staff, because if you tattletale on another prisoner to staff, they could be searching the locker and bad things happen. I regretted that, and it was difficult about a week later where I said, I'm never going to talk to him again, and I didn't, but you live like 8 yards from him. That's uncomfortable. And I made a lot of mistakes in those early months, as some people do, but the guys, they were pretty cool, and I think they could see I was humble enough, and I didn't complain. I did my job. And I shouldn't be rewarded for doing my job, but in your prison, a lot of guys don't do their job. At least where I went, a lot of guys don't do their job. They can give someone a book of stamps to not do their job. And I said, I'm going to do my job. And that job was pots and pans in the kitchen for the first 5 months.